Well, my name is George Morlet. I'm a field technical sales director with CloudFrame. Um, well, we put together this material thinking on what is the typical and the usual problems that companies find with the POCs and during the engagement processes. So really looking forward to give you some piece of very valuable information, and really expecting that this is going to be something that's going to make you improve your decision process. Okay, so let me just jump directly to explain a little bit about the proof of concept in itself. First of all, there are several typical IT engagements. Could be, like proof of technologies, which may be just about the technology, very quick, very almost like a demo, I would say. There are other like a little bit more complex with which they could be called a pilot project. The pilot projects typically are going to be way longer in time, way heavier in the resources that they needed to execute, and probably it's a project that is ready to be taken into production. But what is in the middle? In the middle is exactly the POCs, proof of concept, which is not just the technology, but not a product that is ready to take into production, and is meant to focus on the functional equivalence. Very important that, and I'm going to be mentioning functional equivalence during this presentation, because I think that's the key of a POC. Demonstrate that you really can get the same results what you're expecting in your operations. Okay, so that's why POCs are the preferred option. According to a study from Gartner, 60% of the acquisitions of the Fortune 500 companies is done or are done through POCs. And I honestly think that this number could be way higher if those POCs were executed in a well-defined and a well-executed manner. Okay, so let's go a little bit to the basics. What is proof? Well, if you go Google, you'll find a very easy way to describe what is a proof. It's to provide evidence to establish a fact. That's as simple as that. But basically, proof is what we use to remove the fear of uncertainty and doubt, and that is going to give you the confidence and the clarity on the path forward. So, what do you want proof for? Well, you want to prove for making a decision, making a strategic IT decision, as I was saying from the beginning. In the example that I'm going to give you, the POC process that we follow with CloudFrame, it's the goal is to demonstrate that you can refactor COBOL to Java using an automated system that will create maintainable code. Okay, and that's the strategic decisions that customers can take using our methodology for doing the POCs. Okay, so what is special about CloudFrame POCs, or what is something that is unique? Well, our proposal is for you as customer to run a self-guided POC. Okay, self-guided POC is not a frequent thing to find in the market. And why? Because most of the vendors, they are not designing their solution for the customers to do everything themselves. So we have a solution that really is do it yourself, and will allow you to refactor your COBOL to Java from end to end. Okay, so you can define, and you have to take care of the resources that you're going to engage on this process. You also have to make sure that you have control of the schedule. Do not depend on third parties, do not depend on nobody else, just yourself. Okay, you also, a very important thing that I'm going to be repeating as well during the process, during this presentation, is the secured environment. You own everything. Everything happens within your premises. You don't have to expose your IP, and also you are the owner of your applications, of your processes, of your data. So you keep the knowledge of your processes within your premises. This is very unique on the proposal that we have. We clearly define for you what are the engaged resources that you're going to need. You're going to need an SME, you're going to need a developer, you're going to need, but it's all clear. You will see that. And I think that's key for every successful POC, to have very well defined all of these components. Okay. Now, let me explain a little bit about the characteristics of a successful POC. Well, a little bit about me. I have 30 years experience, and I've run POCs as a customer. I've run POCs as a vendor for different types of products, even hardware, software. And the CloudFrame product, I really like this idea of the do-it-yourself, of the self-guided POC. But I've been, as I was preparing this information for you, I find out that these characteristics of the successful POC, they should apply to any type of POC. And so I try to think on my experience, and I try to think on everything that I've seen with all these customers along the year. And these are the factors that I consider more important. First is customer control. Okay. You need to be able to define when, who, and what's happening with your POC. If you're gonna run a POC in which the vendor is controlling everything, then you're not only not gonna learn, but you will not understand what happened during the process, and you're gonna get lost. The results are not gonna be something that you really understand. You don't have clarity on the process. Okay. Laser focus. Make sure that you know exactly what you want to get. Okay. In the case of a code refactoring POC, make sure that you get a representative code. Make sure that you're putting together the pieces that are going to really help you making a smart strategic decision. Okay. Make it fast. Try to go exactly to the low-hanging fruits. I've heard several times, time kill deals. Okay, if you don't have quick wins, even internally, you will not get the attention of the managers, of the decision makers, because you're losing a lot of time, wasting time, on things that are not important for the process in itself. So make sure that you have a quick win. Make sure that you have something that is representative, and make sure that you have the correct expectations. Don't make everybody or somebody believe that you're going to solve the world in just a POC. I mean, like I mentioned at the beginning, POCs are meant to prove, functional equivalence in this case. Okay, so let everybody know we're going to test and we're going to, prove the functional equivalence, and from there we can move forward, right? There's two more important characteristics that I consider so important that I actually put a separate slide for that, and I'm going to develop more the remaining two. So engaged stakeholders. Make sure that you really get all the people that are going to be impacted involved in the process from the beginning. Let them know what to expect. If your vendor is not giving you enough information for you to share with the stakeholders and they feel confident that this is going to be a successful POC, don't even start. Okay. Make sure that you have a command and control line. Most of the customers, they involve a project manager. Project managers, they know very well, some communication techniques. They can obviously provide reports of the status, reports of the risks, reports of the deviations of the process, keep visibility and transparency, and great communication. It's important here. If you don't have that, you will lose the track, you will lose the people, you will lose the stakeholders' interests. Okay, so that is key. Now the decision, which is actually the ultimate goal of a POC, right? So very important, define a very clear decision-making criteria. So that's going to be something that you want to define together with your provider from the beginning. And that's a thing that we have as part of our methodology. We're telling very clearly our customers what to expect, what is the success criteria, how to, avoid risks. Okay. So one of 2-3 important things here when it's about making the decision. Avoid risks. I already said that, like do not go big bangs, for example. When it's about code migration, mainframe modernization, customers, they may want to go big, and then they end up being in a, in a big loop that doesn't go out anywhere. Okay. make sure that you have very clear your desired future state. Put it down, write down that, and make sure that the POC is going to help you make the decision that you really are going to be able to get there. Okay. Also, try not to get married with a company that you will be in trouble for many years. So vendor locking, it's something that is very frequent to find in the mainframe markets. So try to avoid vendor locking. But most important thing is decide based on the business needs. Okay, make your decision making sure that the technology is going to adapt to your business, not your business to the technology. So if the technology is not giving you what you need, maybe rethink about it. Okay, it has to be flexible enough, and you have to keep the control enough to get from the technology what you need, not the other way around. Okay. Let me now, with all this intro, go to explain exactly how the CloudFrame methodology does work. Okay. Already mentioned, about the autonomy and self-direction and the clear execution steps. But I'm going to explain you exactly how is ours and why we claim to be so very well defined. Okay. So CloudFrame methodology, it's about all happening in the customer's premises, which is something unique, not very frequent to find, and it's very powerful as well, because we're giving you the control. Everything happens within your premises, and your team, your technical people are going to be running this at their pace whenever they have the availability. In my experience, I've seen customers, particularly, tier 1 customers, that they struggle getting some resources because regulations, because internal authorizations, because of many reasons. And it's important for you to keep that control, and you decide when to do what and who is doing it. Okay. So happening everything on your premises, again, will also help you to control your intellectual property, security rules, regulations, everything is going to be under your control. Okay. The methodology, it's about very simple steps. We're going to need some profiles and people involved on this that I'm going to let you know in the next slide. But the steps are very simple. First is we need to provide, or we need you to provide or provision an environment in which all the tests are going to be done. Okay, so it's as simple as enable a Java virtual machine environment. Okay, there's some documentation that we have and that we will provide for each one of the participants, technical information to tell them exactly how to configure everything, the prerequisites, the capacities, everything is going to be there. Okay. So very simple steps. Step number 1 is, create a JVM in which we'll be running the tests. Okay. Step number 2, we will provide a piece of JCL, piece of software that will allow a system programmer to extract information from the mainframe. Part of the analysis that we do with the customers, we help them to define which type of information, what type of application, what type of JCLs, what type of representative COBOL or programming they want to work with. So that's also part of the process. Then, as simple as just transmit those artifacts into the server, the VDI, and we will provide a piece of software, which is a group of utilities that will help the customer to run an analysis over the information that's been extracted from the mainframe. Once we make an initial analysis, we're surely going to find, some missing pieces. One of them, very frequent, is missing metadata about the files that are used during the process, during the application execution. So we provide another JCL that will ensure the extraction of the remaining information, and then we run the analysis back again and make sure that everything is ready to convert. The CF server is a piece of software that we provided you to make the conversion. Everything is automated, and since we run step number 7, we know that everything is going to convert okay. Once we have the code, we ask again the SME and the system programmer to execute a run, a baseline in the mainframe. That baseline obviously is going to produce information that we're going to use as input files to prepare, run, and validate the outputs against the mainframe. So all this typically happens in a span of 3 to 4 weeks, okay? And as you see, we're automating as much as we can and making sure that the customers, that you can do it at your own pace, okay? What we provide here is basically two things. One is the pieces of software that you see there marked on blue, and two, support during the entire process, okay? Now, how is that we know that this can be done within 3 to 4 weeks? Because we've done it several times. We know the resources that you need. We know the estimated efforts at the, such a granular level, even to the level of hours, okay? We know that you will need an application SME to participate during activities 2, 10, and 14. We know that you will need a mainframe system programmer during the activities 2, 3, 5, 6, and 11. We know that you will need an architect to set up the environment and other activities that are there, okay? And we know how many hours the process is going to take. So an SME during the generation and transmission of the a mainframe system programmer making the generation execution of the JCLs and then sending the artifacts is going to take about 6 hours. We know that an architect doing these definitions and installations of the software that we provide is going to take about 4 hours. And the Java developer may be the one getting more work here. They will do the tests. And so for setting up and testing one JCL, we have seen about 10 hours effort and tops of 18 hours effort for 3 entire JCLs converted and tested. And this is being proved. This is a process that we follow continuously. And very important is we do not commit to performance at this point. Basically, the goal here, like I mentioned several times, it's a functional equivalence, okay? We're trying to make sure that the customers, that you validate that your applications are properly converted and that you have, strong knowledge, a strong understanding, and enough information to make a strategic decision. We know that very well that deciding about software acquisitions it's not an easy process, and that POCs are meant to help you doing that definition. But we also have seen how customers, they get very happy when they see that they can control the process and when they see that they can do this with their own hands. So giving you the key, giving you the capacity to execute these steps at your pace by your own people, and we only giving you guidance, we only giving you support, it's something that we find very, very useful, okay? So 3 to 4 weeks to finish an entire POC that will lead you to make a decision about how you're going to modernize your technology. This is something very unique on the market, and we know, and that's why I'm actually, I have to say it, I'm proud of the work that David helped me to put here together, and how to expose a very unique way to do POCs that we are having in CloudFrame. Okay. Now, what happens after? What is the goal? Like I said, the goal is to demonstrate the functional equivalence. So go back, make sure that in that list that you created at the beginning, you're going to check mark everything. Okay. Make sure that you comply with expected functionality. Make sure that everything is doing the same. Basically, SMEs, they will know exactly what is that they want to test. They will give us enough use cases or test cases to make sure that we go and test every possible functionality within the code. Okay. Also, make sure that you're getting maintainable code. I mentioned already, make sure that your technology adapts to your business needs, not the other way around. Well, this is very important. As you're going to receive a Java code that you're going to maintain in the long run, you may be going to change, improve, modify. It's very important to you for you to make sure that you have maintainable code. So part of the process of the validation of the and evaluation is to make sure that you have maintainable code, that you can give this to other developers and they will understand we at CloudFrame, we proudly can say that we can give our code to a newly Java just coming out of a college, and he will understand what he's seeing. And that's something very unique, because we're not producing COBOL, we are producing really maintainable code.
Yep. George,
okay? Yes.
Along that lines, we do have a question about that. And I'm going to read the question, and then
please,
we'll try to get an answer put together. One of the participants says, so how do you handle COBOL code constructs that aren't able to be handled in Java? And if you convert it, it will end up as an emulated COBOL black box. I think it's JOBOL that we're referring to there. Yeah. Black box classes that look nothing like Java, go-tos, redefines, nested group data lines, perform through statements, etc. So I think they're asking about maintainable code, about how do we refactor the COBOL code that's in your system into something that's maintainable. So you want to take a stab at answering that?
Oh yeah, thank you, and great question. There's nothing that I love the more than getting nice questions. That means that somebody's paying attention. So thank you for the question. Yeah, well, let me go a little bit deep on the technical solution and explain you how the process works. We have not only do-it-yourself solution that will let you do the conversion, but also we have a piece of artificial intelligence embedded on the process, which is pattern recognition. We basically have defined patterns in Java that will identify, signatures in Java that will identify the patterns in the COBOL code. And then what we're doing is matching. We find the pattern of a way to do an execution, like for example, a move, and we define that this move is gonna do this kind of operation during the process. Important, we're not working with only your code. We're working with the compiler listings, because compiled COBOL is going to behave different than the original code. And this is something very important, because we're analyzing what is happening with your variables, what is happening with your information, what is happening with your computes during the process. So after that is when we decide what is the correct pattern that we're going to assign to this. These patterns are methods inside of the Java classes that they are very readable and understandable. We are very proud to say that we're going to provide you the entire code. There's no black boxes. There's no classes that you don't see. You will see every class, and you will be able to dig and see exactly what is going on in each one of the methods. And we make this understandable because we are separating the classes in a very efficient way. For example, the core of the operation of the business, we are separating that as a process. So we have a class named process, which will allow you to see the business logic. So eventually you can completely decouple your business logic and start working with the data separately. All the classes that are related to the data are separated. And we inject those classes into the main code, into the main class as annotations. This will give you a lot of efficiency, and this will give you a lot of control on everybody who does not understand Java to know, oh, this is a COBOL data structure, and I'm dealing with that this way. Okay, what if I want to change that COBOL data structure? Just change that class, reconnect to your business logic, and boom, continue. I hope that was not like too technical. I want to make sure that the concept is clear.
Yeah, well, that's a great answer, George. And we noted the question, and we'll follow up with the person that asked it and make sure that we've got that answered correctly. We do have another question about whether we're able to refactor COBOL without the source code. So in parentheses, they have rescued. Can it be rescued?
Well, most of the customers, and I've seen many cases, they don't have the original code, but they do have the compiler listings. So if you have the compiler listings, we can work with that. If you don't have any of them and only the executables, well, I've seen some techniques to do some, revive the code and try to do some reverse engineering, but we honestly haven't applied that, or not myself yet. Okay. So it's something that we have to analyze. But if you only have the compiler listings, we can definitely do something there.
All right. Thanks, George. All right. Thank you. Thanks for the questions. If you have any more, go ahead and post them, and we'll try to get those answered before we before we end the call, which is coming up here pretty quick. So, George, you want to take us through the rest of it?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. So just finishing the success evaluation process, make sure that you also have control of the data access. Like I mentioned, our projects, the resulting Spring Boot or Spring Batch projects that we generate, they will help you to control the way you access the data. Either databases, PSAM, QSAM files, everything is meant to help you, control the way you want to access the data. And most important thing, make sure that you have a correct business case that is properly satisfied. Okay, that's about the evaluation of your functional equivalence. Checkmark everything. Okay. Some questions that we usually get, and I think I've responded most of these. What are the roles involved in your POCs? There's a slide, and I can mention again what are the roles. We have a application SME, a system programmer, an architect, a Java developer, and eventually a project manager involved. Very important to have at least these resources. Okay, typical duration, 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the availability of the resources from the customers. But you see that it's hours dedicated to this, not that much effort. Performance, it's a thing that we can address during a pilot. As we're moving forward and the customer decide, yes, I like your technology, it's functionally working the way we need, let's take the next step. Okay, if the next step is big application that is consuming huge amount of resources on the mainframe, and you want to make sure that this is going to run properly in the new environment, then we go and talk about performance, and we do efficiencies on the Java code. Java is amazing for efficiency. It has so many patterns, so many ways to improve the performance, predefined technologies that even help with these, caching mechanisms. Everything can be done there. So we can work with you and help you get into there. Okay, the expected performance. The estimated effort, already mentioned, 3 to 4 weeks. Resources are there, and the languages in the scope, very important. We are only working with IBM COBOL to Java right now.
George,
okay,
we did have another question around.
Yes.
I'll read it to you. The question says, are there certain versions of COBOL that you support, do not support?
Basically, versions of COBOL for IBM COBOL, we do not support version outside of IBM COBOL. Okay, so ACE400 or other types of COBOL, they're not included here.
Thanks, George. We appreciate
Thank you very much. Thank you, David. Thanks, everybody.